Hi friends, welcome to Question It. Remember to print out the worksheets to follow along. Today we're going to learn about being kind. Let's begin by filling in the blank using the word bank on the right. Please pause the video until you are ready to proceed. Being kind means being nice to others and doing things that make them feel cared for. It's like giving someone a smile, helping them when they need it, or sharing your toys without being asked. Now let's do a summary using the words from the word bank. Please pause the video until you are ready to proceed. A good summary can be being kind means helping someone and make them feel cared for without being asked, like smiling at them or sharing something with them. Now the bolded red phrase is an important concept that we want to remember. So let's create a question for it. The information we want to remember is it means being nice to others and doing things that make them feel cared for. So we want to remember that the question should seek the definition of a term, being kind, and because our answer is the definition of what being kind is, which means doing things that make others feel cared for. Now, please take a moment to try to formulate your question. Okay, so because our answer is a definition, we should use a what type of question. So we will start out saying what? We want to remember what being kind means. So we just say, what does being kind mean? Did you write down that question? Okay. Now let's move on. Here is another important sentence that we want to remember right here. Let's make it into an answer and create a question for us to quiz ourselves to remember that fact. So the answer is, it is like sharing your toys without being asked. So the important here is like, it's like a comparison, right? So we want to think about how being kind involves actions like sharing toys without being asked. So we're using information from the answer in here and try to incorporate it into our question. So we want to ask a question that helps us explain this example using the keyword above. Now it's your turn to try. Please pause the video and take a moment to formulate your question, and when you're ready, then resume it. So, or when we want to help us explain or compare, that is another what type of question. So what, and then the key word here is like. We want some type of comparison, and we want to relate that to our main idea of being kind. So we can ask a question like, what is it like to be kind? Or what is an example of being kind? Or what does kind look like? Being kind look like, right? There are different questions that you could have come up with, but something along that line. Okay, now let's fill in the blank using the word bank for the highlighted section below. And this is our word bank over here. Please pause the video until you are ready to proceed. One example of being kind from Scripture is the account of the Good Samaritan from the Bible. Here's a simple version of the account. There was a man traveling on a road when some robbers attacked him. They hurt him and took all his things, leaving him by the side of the road. Many people passed by and saw the man, but they didn't stop to help. Then a Samaritan man came along. Even though Samaritans and Jews usually didn't get along, the Samaritan stopped and helped the injured man. Now let's do a summary using the words from the word bank. Please pause the video until you are ready to proceed. Okay, your summary can be something like a man was attacked and injured and he was a Jew, but the Samaritan showed an example of being kind because he stopped and helped the injured man when other people didn't. Something along that line. I know I didn't use up all of it, but that was a good summary nevertheless. So you don't have to use all the words. The more you can use, the better. Okay? Okay. So here is another important sentence from this reading that we want to remember. So let's make it into an answer and create a question for it. So the answer is no, Samaritans and Jews usually did not get along. So we want to remember that the answer says something about Samaritan and Jews usually did not get along. And we want it to be a yes or a no answer, right? So we want to ask a question to check if this information is true or false. Because we want no for an answer, we need to rephrase the question to not be true. So those are some hints to help you formulate your question. And so please take a moment to formulate your question and then unpause the video when you're ready. Okay, so because we want an answer of no, then we can ask, is it true? I know it's not in one of these lists, but it's another type of question to have in your like arsenal, in your toolbox, so that you can create like more type of questions for you to review your materials. So is it true? So right away we're like, that, is it true what? Is it true that, and then we're going to use information from our answer, that Samaritan and Jews usually get along. We know they usually did not get along, so we want the reverse of that so that we can get no for an answer. Is it true that Samaritans and Jews usually get along? So when we read this, we're like, no, it's false. So we're going to have an answer. No, Samaritan and Jews usually did not get along. And so that question and answer makes sense together, and we have checked for clarity. So our question makes sense. And then we can file this question away in like an index card or flip through it when we need to review to remember what we read about, what we understood from our reading. And we should do this in chunks like what I'm showing you right now, so that you have a habit of reading, reflecting, quizzing yourself, and then move on when you feel like you know the material or understand what you've just read. Okay, so we're on to the next part. Let's again fill in the blank using the word bank on the right. Please pause the video until you are ready to proceed. So he cleaned his wounds, put him on his donkey, and took him to an inn where he could rest and get better. The Samaritan even paid the innkeeper to take care of the man until he was well again. Wow, he's so nice. So now please do a summary using the words from the word bank. Please pause the video until you are ready to proceed. A good summary can be, the Samaritan even paid, or the Samaritan first cleaned the man's wound, then took him to an inn and even paid the innkeeper to take care of the man until he got better. Yay! I used all the words this time. Okay, so now here is another important sentence that we want to remember. So what do we do? If you said make it into an answer and create a question for it, that's correct. So the answer, the fact that we want to remember is that the Samaritan even paid the innkeeper to take care of the man until he was well again. So this even paid, this key word means we're comparing, it's a type of information, and we're comparing two different levels. Like the lower level is like him being taken to the inn. So he took him to an inn, but he did more than that. That's why it's that even paid. So he did more than just taking him to an inn. He even paid for it. Like him taking him to an inn, that's good enough. But he even paid for it. So out of his own money, right? So we want to remember that the answer explained what the Samaritan did to help the injured man even after taking him to an inn. So think about what I just said. And so now please pause the video and formulate your question. And click pause until you're ready to proceed. So when we want to remember that the answer explains some kind of explanation, then we would use a what type of question. So what happened? What did the Samaritan do? And then we're going to use the key word from our answer, even, right? What did the Samaritan do even after taking the man to the inn? Because we want to know, like he not just took the man to an inn, right? We want to know the level after that. So we include that in our question to make it more concise. Because if we just say, what did the Samaritan do? Oh, he did a lot of things, right? So we want to make our question very, very specific to get the specific answer we want. So if your question is similar to that, good job. So for the last activity, we are going to fill in the blank again. So please use the word from the word bank and fill in the blank for this paragraph. Please pause the video until you are ready to proceed. Okay, this account shows being kind because the Samaritan helped someone in need, even though it wasn't easy and he didn't have to. He showed love and care for someone he didn't even know, which is a wonderful example of being kind. Now let's do a summary using the word from the word banks. Please pause the video until you are ready to proceed. A good summary can be, the Samaritan showed an example of being kind because he cared for someone in need, even though it wasn't easy. I didn't use all the words again, but that works. Okay, so here is another important sentence that we want to remember from our reading. Let's make it into an answer and create a question for it. The fact that we want to remember is this is a wonderful example because the Samaritan showed love and care for someone he didn't even know. So we want to understand a reason, right? The key word here is because. Because tell us that there's a reason involved. The reason this is a wonderful example is because of this. Okay, so we want to understand the reason for the account of the Samaritan being a wonderful example of a main idea. And the main idea we're talking about is being kind. the Samaritan is an example of someone being kind to someone else. So what type of question would get us the answer we need? Please pause the video and formulate your question, and until you unpause it when you are ready to proceed. Because there's a because in it, there's a reason involved, we would use a why type of question. So why what? When we're asking why, we usually need to relate two ideas. Why is the Samaritan? So why? This account of the Samaritan, if we want to be more like clear in our question, why was the account of the Samaritan a wonderful example? So we're using the keywords from the answer in our question. A wonderful example of being kind. So two things, Samaritan, kindness. So that in our brain, our neuron, we're linking the two ideas together, making a connection. And so our question is clear and concise, and so we're great. Okay, and that is all there is for this activity. Please take a moment to go through the questions that you made, review it, ask it to yourself, and then see if you remember the facts, the answer that you want to your question. And the more you practice these reading techniques, the better you will get at it, and hopefully it will help you in your study. Thank you. Bye. Have fun learning.